Voyages 4 and 5 seemed to meld into just one voyage, although there were a couple of subtle differences between the two. In coming to these voyages, there were certain questions that stood out in my mind from previous voyages. But rather than ask any particular questions, my intention was set on seeking that Mother Ayahuasca reveal herself to me well as much as she considered appropriate, and she didn't disappoint. On Voyage 4. This voyage was hosted by a male ceremony leader, so the energy in the room felt different to the past voyages, not in a bad way, but it felt different. The usual pre-ceremony prep work was carried out, and then the ayahuasca was handed out and imbibed. Mother Ayahuasca did her usual vibrational reviving with me, and then sometime soon after the second cup of ayahuasca, we were well on our way. This time she brought me into another temple, then showed me another and another temple. She explained that each temple represented one human life form, being, or entity, and to listen to each of the people in the room and to see them in their temples, it would inform me of their true state or condition. Visually, this became a gallery of stages, and then everything became illuminated, and visually, each of the beings in the room could be seen as they really were. These stunning visuals and the feelings that accompanied them did not mean a lot to me then and there, but later made perfect sense. Once all of this had been communicated to me, Mother Ayahuasca took me above, maybe and certainly away from the temples and galleries, and gave me a view of the vast expanse of other temples. At this point, in the distance, back on planet Earth, they were asking if anyone wished to have another cup of ayahuasca. Mother Ayahuasca instructed me to take it, as she wished to reveal more stuff, but she said when taking it, ask the ceremony leader to bring it to you and stay with you while you drink, as his presence would help you keep it down. Of course, there was no argument from me, and this worked a treat. Soon after lying down again, Mother Ayahuasca came for me and took me once again to view the expanse of the temples. It was like being in a Mary Poppins or Peter Pan film. Then she took hold of me again and raised me to a higher elevation to take in another view. This view was an even greater expanse. We seemed to be among the stars, but above them at the same time. This place was where spirits, beings, entities, souls, or however one describes them, get ready to be reborn, incarnated, or reincarnated. They were being organized by other beings that were overseen by other beings. We were watching this entire thing going on as if it was just a day trip to an airport. Beings were put into caskets or pods and shot through portals that strongly resembled stars on their way to be born. Many of the beings seemed somewhat confused and/or had no idea what was going on or where they were going, but just went along with it all, as you do. Mother Ayahuasca told me to just use my wings and have a good look around, and that awakened beings get to choose to come back again, be reborn or not. For the moment, my job back on the earthly plane of existence was to watch and learn, and that she was intending to put my watching and learning to good use, if that was okay by me. Of course, there was no argument from me, as this all seemed like quite an agreeable arrangement, certainly from my perspective anyhow. After all, it's not every day you get to see what is really going on beyond or behind the scenes, in the in-between, so to speak, and it's not every day you get a pair of wings either. One of her final messages to me this time was that there was more work for me to do on myself, and there was some more healing in store that she could guide me to and provide help with if that was okay. This all seemed agreeable, amendable, and quite a friendly approach, which was not usually my day-to-day modus operandi. All this stuff, for some reason, just didn't seem strange at the time. On the contrary, it all seemed familiar and recognizable. Of course, telling or writing it now does seem a little strange, but you had to be there, as they say. That was more or less the highlights of the 4th voyage, with my 5th still to come. On voyage 5. This 5th voyage was total bliss. Just after the 3rd glass of ayahuasca, and upon my request, the guide wrapped me up in blankets just like a mummy, and for almost 5 hours straight my body did not budge an inch. Mother Ayahuasca was giving me a day off to relax, to voyage inside to outer dimensions, but also to be present in the room, to tune into what was going on for the other people. With this relaxation, my senses became heightened in the extreme. The music playing and the sounds and vibrations emanating from the people in the room carried me to dimensions beyond anything my intellect could adequately describe. Although there was love, laughter, giggling, and singing present in the room, my senses tended to tune in more to the puking, the crying, and weeping, and the pain, and the suffering of others. There was a woman who was voyaging, lying near to me, and when she cried and wept, she was crying and weeping for me. My breathing was in tune with her, and her sorrow was being felt by me. It was a wonderful release of emotion. From time to time it felt like it was me who was breathing for her. My feeling was she felt this unique connection between us. This was the strangest thing up to this point ever experienced by me, a total surrender or empathy towards another's suffering. Throughout this 5 or so hours, my senses were so acutely tuned into what was going on in the room that almost every time someone expressed an emotion of any sort, my instincts somehow tuned me into what was going on with them and whatever they were feeling. It felt like it was me that was feeling what they felt, but of course it was them who expressed it through laughter, singing, giggling, crying, wailing, and weeping. All voyages are different, but this one to date just seemed to be the most invigorating of all. Everything seemed to be falling into place, and as for my questions, they were answered and will be addressed in the key elements/revelations section below. Key elements/revelations of voyages 4 and 5. The specific lead guide, whether or not they are male or female, can affect each voyage in a different way, with a different level or quality of energy. One is not better than the other, just different. The people in the room and those you are near or beside have a bearing on your voyage. They can either disturb or assist you. Even if they are disturbing you, you are still being taught something, as it has raised something in you which may need further examination. The choice of music for me had a massive effect upon all of my voyages. The music carried me, as did the expression of emotion. The music and the expression of emotion became one and the same. My preference is that a group voyage was or is preferable to a singular guided voyage, as the connection to others and their emotions heightened the sensitivity of all voyagers. The temple was my archetypal representation of individual people's lives, and each of those people had their own gallery and could be observed playing out their own dramas in that space. There is a dimension beyond the temples and galleries where one could observe spirits, entities, souls, beings, etc., preparing and departing for their next experience, their next incarnation, so to speak. Awakened beings get to choose if they wish to reincarnate or not, and in certain dimensions of reality, the archetype of wings were available for use, but we sometimes need reminding of this. There was more healing in store for me, and more work for me to do. Emotions emit vibrations, and these vibrations can carry you or others to other dimensions. Lots more on this theme of emotional vibration was to be revealed on later voyages. In fact, that leads us nicely to Portugal for voyages 6 and 7. On being back home from voyage 4 and 5. Integration was relatively smooth on this occasion, and again, keeping connection and correspondence with my fellow voyagers helped immensely in landing back into the world of the real. After being home for a few weeks and having reflected upon these voyages, it struck me that my next logical step was to train as a guide. It seemed to call to me, but not for any obvious reason. Although one has to greatly admire what guides do, how they work with and attend to people, this didn't feel like my space at all. Nonetheless, the guide training was calling to me. So, thus followed my next adventure in Ayahuasca land. The guide training was to take place in Portugal in February of 2019. Portugal had once been on my list of places to visit, so why not?